I
Let's say something.
All right, welcome to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. It's a Tuesday, and it's time to bring all the big stories to you, the major headlines from yesterday. Let's touch all of them, perhaps a few of them before 8 o'clock today. My name is Victor Pepple.
I'm Shopper Martins, and for the next half hour, we have got the news analysis for you, courtesy of our two analysts. The first is Wade Ahime, who's in the studio with us. Good morning, Wade.
Good morning.
Good morning
You are
to you.
betting for me this
Good
morning.
morning, Wade.
Good morning, Pepper. Good morning, Shopper. Good morning, Ike Messi.
Hey, my man, good morning.
Well, there you have it.
And
Ikemesit
Ikemesit
Effiong.
Effiong.
Yeah, he's also with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Shokwe.
And we have you too. So make sure you send your WhatsApp messages in 20809 4440981 as we are streaming live on YouTube. All you need to do is leave your comments on the live stream, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. And you can take it to Twitter where we are at smooth981FM. If you tag us in your tweet, we'll see it, we'll read it, we'll have your say here on Freshly Pressed.
Now let's begin with this one from Daily Post. Peter Obi's supporters dangerous threats to APC PDP. Fani Kayode is credited with that headline. Now, the former aviation minister Femi Fani Kayode has described Peter Obi's supporters as dangerous. He was reacting in an essay titled "Who Are These Obedience?" He goes on and on, describing both political parties and the chances of the Labour Party. Kemesit, let's come to you for this one. What do you make of this story?
Fani Kayode wrote this essay where he basically argued, right, that Peter Obi as well as the Labour Party's rise and relevance in Nigeria's politics within a few short months is nothing short of meteoric and phenomenal. And the dominant idea of his thesis was that all of the other political parties, the APC and the PDP, should stop treating Peter Obi and the Labour Party as also rans, and they need to dedicate resources as well as time in order to understand the groundswell of support that is propelling the Obi campaign and find how their mind works in order to defeat them next year. It's not often I agree with Fani Kayode. As a matter of fact, I'm scratching my head to try to recall the last time I did, but he's absolutely right. And a lot of us who watch this space professionally, as well as all of us Nigerians who are PVCs um, and are eligible to vote, have been saying this for a while now. What the OB campaign has done is not a fluke. It is also a rarity in Nigerian political terms. They've only really been three insurgent political campaigns of this nature right across Nigeria's democratic history. And lots of lessons, not just within this cycle, but also for future cycles to come, that the ruling elite, and Fani Kayode was writing this more as a pre-mortem to the ruling elite. So this wasn't really the business of politics as usual is out the window. You have to understand the level of disaffection, the level of anger, the level of frustration that Nigerian voters feel that has made, Peter Obi, who was a very unlikely proposition at the start of the year, really the cynosure of many Nigerian voters. And he's absolutely right. They have to do that. Otherwise, they'll be in for a surprise in February next year.
Now, we're approaching the campaigns next month. What should Nigerians expect? Should it be, issue-based campaigns, or we're going to see a lot of propaganda online as very usual with the Nigerian space when it comes to elections?
There'll be a fairly healthy bit of propaganda. So it will be very difficult to excise that component out of any any election cycle or any political season. I mean, even in advanced mature democracies, that is always the case. But the beautiful thing about this campaign or about this election cycle is that the issues are so front and center, and they are so in the face of many Nigerian voters. And it's going to be pretty hard for the candidates who are running to ignore them. They will need to engage with the Nigerian voters to their plans for how to tackle the economy, how to tackle insecurity, how to tackle the cost of governance, because those issues are clear and present. And so, you basically, this is not going to be one of those cycles where you can propaganda yourself away with, hot takes and cheap slogans and cut away references. You need to come with ideas, and as we'll see either in the next story or or two stories after this, right? The political leaders are being forced, right, in critical forums to answer these questions, because right now we've come to a point in our democratic evolution where slowly but surely the Nigerian voter is beginning to pay attention to what happens to them and who has the right answers for addressing those issues. So propaganda would definitely be a part of the mix, but that will not preclude the candidates from also coming up with serious solutions as to what their governing program would be.
Ikamasich, you've already referenced the story, so let's get into it. Now, from The Nation, Tinubu, Atiku, and Obi roll out plans on economy and security. Now, they were guests at a plenary of the ongoing 62nd Nigerian Bar Association Annual General Conference, which we also heard from the renowned author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who, whilst in the presence, talked about the fact that that Nigeria is suffering from a lack of good leadership, and when talking about how they had to then roll out or showcase what they were going to do if they did get the chance to be president. We heard from Tinubu through the APC vice presidential candidate and former Borno State Governor Shatima, who said that the former Lagos State Governor will deploy his mastery of financial management capabilities, while he, should he get into the vice presidential role, would handle security. Let me just quote this: "I will handle the security and lead the troops, while my principal, who is an economic wizard, will handle the economy." And he also talked about diversification of the country's income. We heard from the PDP presidential candidates, who emphasized his belief in restructuring via power devolution, saying more resources and more power to the states, and also that the multiple exchange rate must be abolished. Whilst the Labour Party presidential candidate said that the only way to stabilize the Naira is for the Nigerian economy to move from consumption to production. Just like a little snippet of what they all said, but I'm coming to you for this, Akama says.
Yeah, you've really covered the field, right? And I think what's perhaps critical, so there are two critical components, right, to this story. First is the optics. The APC was the only political party whose presidential candidate was not on stage at the annual general conference plenary, right? That says a lot, because we're now in this space, right, where the country's problems, like I said earlier, are so front and center that in addition to trying to address those issues, constant engagement and constant education and constant contact with the Nigerian electorate, not just during the election, like whoever wins when they are implementing their program of governance, is critical. Like, you can't have a situation where a presidential candidate is essentially absent. And really what Shetima did was to come and say, you know what, this particular conference is happening in Lagos. We have a frame of reference. Our presidential candidate was in charge of this state for 8 years. We all know what he did. So that gives us the know-how to be able to sort out the economy. I think Lagos voters, or certainly the members of the Lagos and the Ikeja Bar who were attending at the AGC, will have a more nuanced perspective on Tinubu's economic record. But aside from that, the fact that he wasn't there spoke clearly and loudly, especially considering that his contemporaries were also on stage. Atiku and Obi, had a more nuanced and demonstrated a more contextual understanding of Nigeria's problems. I love, for example, that Atiku talked about devolution of powers, which is very important and very critical. And it's not something that, contrary to what a lot of Nigerians might think or hear, a lot of presidential candidates, let alone presidents, talk about. So it was quite interesting for me that he basically said, when I am in office as the person in charge of the federal government, it makes sense for us to begin to consider handing more powers to the states, which thoroughly makes sense. Nigeria is too centralized for a country that ostensibly tells itself every day it wakes up that it's a federation. And it's manifesting in how we manage the economy, how we manage security, how we manage things like the ports, for example. And so that was important. Obi, as well as some of the other presidential candidates of some of the minor parties, right, the Social Democratic Party, as well as the All Progressives Grand Alliance, talked about the economy and especially talked about the currency management, which is super uber critical. Obi also zeroed in on unemployment, which is critical. And I know we're focused on the headline unemployment numbers, but Obi highlighted a point, which is something that, for example, myself and my team at SBM and a lot of other economy watchers always talk about, which is the combined unemployment and underemployment rate.
Underemployment.
So the number of Nigerians who work less than 20 hours a week unemployed, and those who work between 20 and 40 hours a week who are underemployed. And that number is around 55%. So there are about 120 million Nigerians who, by virtue of their age, should be in the labor force. But we have something on the likes of just under 50 million Nigerians who are actually fully employed. That is a gap and a chasm in the heart of the economy that needs to be sorted out by, whoever it is that will be the next president. And the fact that Obi zeroed in on that, I mean, also cueing all of the excitement of social media around, his arrival and his speech in general, just shows you not only where his headspace is in terms of, what the big priorities are for any administration, but also where the headspace of the Nigerian voter is. What that means,
just to add
everyone
one,
go figure.
just to add one more thing to what you said, and I think something that really does make sense to me, and which is something we has been talking about, is moving from consumption to production. And by so doing, that 55% of the labor force that is not fully engaged, either completely or engaged partially, we should be looking forward to things like that. I remember that in the 70s, 60s, one of the things that projected Nigeria's economy was not being a consumption economy, but being a production economy. Because when you look at things like textiles and the number of them, you just find out that today we import all our clothes from China. And Nigeria was a huge exporter of textile materials. So I think we need to come back to that space, and by just so doing, and also what Atiku said in terms of devolution, I do believe that it's the right way to go. And for me, at the end of the day, I didn't really hear much from some of the other parties. But at the end of the day, I think these three-way elections for 2023 is going to be interesting.
Why they are old though, 60s and 70s?
Like you, a researcher, we do history too.
All right,
let's
great.
take a look at the messages as they come in across the different platforms. Remember, youtube.com/smooth981fm Lagos, and Twitter, where we are at smooth981fm, and of course WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. Tony from Ikeja on WhatsApp saying, Fani Kanade was clever by half. The people he termed dangerous are the unemployed school leavers and graduates, the students that are at home for months due to the poor treatment of their lecturers by successive governments, the victims of kidnap and banditry and killer herdsmen. In short, the dangerous supporters of Obi are the Nigerians that oppose corrupt and clueless leadership, is what Tony has to say.
Life has this one. FFK has never been a serious start. When Tinubu said he's ready to fight dirty, FFK did hear, but he can hear Obi supporters. We can now see that Tinubu is okay. Thank you. We end it there.
We move it along. Do remember, try not to personalize your comments if you want them read out on air. This one in Emeka, you can talk about the issues without abuse. Thank you. Emeka from Bagadas says, talking of issue-based campaigns, what will APC present before the masses? High inflation index, insecurity where the captors are flogging the captives in the full glare of the public. As you strike, our tertiary institutions are under lock. The airlines are under threat because they can't remit their funds. Talking of issue-based, let's be serious and stop deceiving the masses.
All right, we'll take one more and get to the stories. Yomi has this message. The NBA conference should not be made a campaign ground for the ventilation of the political ideas in clear contravention of the Electoral Act as to the right time to start campaigns. Shocking that the association that parades itself as the rule of law keeper did not stick to these. Earlier said than done. Did Atiku put on the table, easier said than done, forgive me, did Atiku put on the table devolution of power as a VP? Same will be that didn't conduct the LG elections when he was governor. Talk is cheap. How can you move from consumption to production? We throw these words out. The question is how? I'm not sure he mentions the APC in all of that, but it's okay.
Let's take this last one in Tony from Magodo, who says, I believe the 2023 election campaign cycle will be the first time in the history of this country that aspirants will be forced to actually think of real solutions to national issues in order to convince voters to vote for them. The hardship is being felt on all fronts at the moment. Propaganda is unlikely to work this time around.
All right, let's take it to Daily Trust quickly. IGP, Police Service Commission, in fresh disagreement over recruitment. In fact, the Police Service Commission had opened its portal for recruitment of police constable for the year 2022 and placed an advert in a national daily. But reacting, the force public relations officer Muyiwa Dejobi said the advert had no connection with the Nigeria police and was not in tandem with the police recruitment process. This is not the first time, Wade, that the force and the police force and service commission will be having a back and forth with regards who to recruit police constables or officers, as it were.
It happened in 2019.
Right.
Then it was the police that put out the police force itself that put out the advert, and the PSC was like, no, it's not their responsibility. I think from what all goes on is that both parties must sit down together and agree, and then I'm not sure, I have to go and check that, who is actually responsible for advertising and all that. But at the end of the day, what it just goes to show me is that the Police Service Commission and the police force really are not in tangent with each other. They are forever fighting each other. And this is just, for me, it's just because one person wants to prove supremacy of the Police Service Commission. Is the responsibility is to more or less have an oversight function on the police force. So if that's what you're meant to do and ensure that those things are being done, I don't think the PSC should be responsible for recruiting policemen into the force, because they should be able to set out the criteria for which that should be done.
But what are the responsibilities of the Police Service Commission if they cannot recruit? Also, like you said, in 2019, this same thing happened. I recall AGF Malami writing to President Buhari to allow the police service, to allow the police force handle recruitment, not the Police Service Commission. But this argument keeps coming up every year or every time we want to recruit.
The Police Service Commission is an oversight commission. So why would you be the one wanting to recruit constables into the police? You should work with the police. You should set the criteria. You should set the guidelines. And that's what you're meant to do. And based on that, fix a time that the police will advertise. So what will be the basis of the Police Service Commission? It's just a commission that has a membership of maybe like 10. And then you go ahead and say, oh, you're the ones recruiting. What is the process for doing that? Who is going to carry out the interviews? Who is going to ensure that? Because the interview stages are different stages. So there might be written, then you move on to oral and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, their responsibility is to have an oversight function on the police force. Are they doing that rather than creeping into the work of the police force? And that's how I say.
Let's take a break. When we come back, more stories for you.
Message, you did not remember. See, Fanika made a statement, and we should never ignore that. What was it that I said?
What did he say?
I'll read it to you now. Is a quote there. They are threatened by young people. He said, the truth is that they are far more dangerous to our collective cause as a ruling class than many of us can possibly consider.
But I mentioned that his audience was the ruling elite, and he was basically calling them out and telling them not to ignore them.
I know. Yeah. And that's to show you how much they are trying to hold on to power.
Is it a shock and a surprise? That's not a hot take
So
at
let's
all.
move
Or
to
add.
the remaining stories.
Which one are we going to know?
I'll read out some YouTube messages.
Okay.
Twitter.
I'm next.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We'll take more messages.
Yes, we'll start off with these coming in via Twitter, where we are at Smooth981FM from Engineer Strategic, who says, "Why are we even featuring a discussion of a man like FFK? His credentials don't hold water anymore." And he also says, "Have you noticed that you get more recognition once you achieve outside the shores of Nigeria? Guess what is driving the mass exodus of the youngest, most energetic, healthiest, and most talented and educated Nigerians who are jetting out of the country?" Whilst David Adams says,
Yes, it says, since FFK joined APC, this will be my first time of agreeing with him on any issue. He's spot on about obese supporters being dangerous.
all right, yes, Akamasi is doing his little dance, which you can only see on YouTube. Let's take a look at what you have to say via WhatsApp. Danny from Anthony says, "Regardless of the results of next year's elections, politics in Nigeria has changed for the better. However, political violence and voter disenfranchisement and misuse of incumbency will still remain with us for a while." That was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask, whether or not you believe that the political arena has actually changed as much as people think it has changed, or rather it's just people's perception that has changed difference. But we need to move on. Now let's take a look at this next article, which comes in from The Nation. "Governors haven't done enough on security, says Uguda." That is the headline, to which the former Bauchi State Governor Issa Uguda saying that governors have not done enough in tackling the seemingly intractable insecurity in the land. Wadi, I want to get your thoughts on this, considering the fact that whenever we hear from the governors on security, a lot of people will say, okay, security votes. Your thoughts?
Why did you bring up security?
I'm
Anyway,
just-
I do think to a certain extent, former Governor Yaguda makes a lot of sense. And why would I say that? Because every time there's an issue of insecurity, the first thing that happens is the governor says, "Oh no, it's not our responsibility. We don't control the police, we don't control the military, we don't control the DSS, and so on." But you have offices, all these security channels have offices. They have commissioners that work with the police. They have the military has security leaders that work with the governor. So what are you doing every time you have your state security meetings?
I mean,
I'll
have to ask.
How are you helping?
Mhm.
How are you helping them to also help provide security across the state?
Why the narrative of the isolated warrior who can do nothing because he's been
For me,
shunted off?
For me, I look at it that a lot of the governors are playing politics with this, and that's the way I see, in my own opinion. Because first, like also, what are the security votes for the states being used for? Is it just for you to provide security for the governors or those around governance? And that because they get security briefs every week when they have their meetings. So what exactly are you doing? How are you working with them? How are you providing whether it's funding or it's the necessary support locally within the state? So I do think Governor Yaguda makes a lot of sense by saying that they're not doing enough, and just every time running back to the federal government or laying the blame on the feet of the federal government because there are some things you probably want and nobody's giving it to you.
Now, back in March, at the end of March, we had heard from the Governors Forum, and they had apologized for the incessant spate of attacks that were bedeviling the nation, and said that they would be rolling out some security features that would help to make Nigerians feel safer. What would you say that you've seen anything with regards to that?
Some of the states have done that, but has it really worked? What they put there, what are they doing, and what's the collaboration between the security, what's it called, security system that they proposed in line in when you consider it to what has been before now? For me, I just see the same thing. Every state blames the federal government. Kaduna State has always said, "Oh, we have intelligence, but the government is not doing anything." Who is the government?
All
right, quickly, let's come to you, message for this one in from the Guardian newspaper. Army pledges to unmask, prosecute soldiers involved in alleged cleric's murder. What do you make of this story? Quickly.
So the Nigerian army says that two suspected soldiers who were arrested by the Yobe State Police Command for the alleged murder of ostensibly the most important, the most popular, I mean, Islamic cleric in that state, Sheikh Goni Gashwa, would be unmasked. I don't know what that means, but their identities be revealed? Would they go to a court martial? It's not clear what the parameters are. The army, though, did say that they have instituted a board of inquiry to unravel the circumstances surrounding the incident, and they say at the end of the investigation, the soldiers will be made to face the full wrath of both military and civil law if, in fact, they are found culpable. The most one of the most important Muslim NGOs in the country, the Muslim Rights Concern, has called for swift justice. They called killing brutal, callous, and cold-blooded. I remember Chopin saying in the lead up to the program that we'll probably find out in a few weeks that these guys were not real soldiers, which is skepticism, which is well earned because the military is fond of coming up narratives such as that. But what is quite interesting to me is that the military is talking about this in the first place, which represents a little bit of a sea change from where they typically are in the past. I spent some time with the armed forces in June, and one of the recommendations that came up in some of our engagements was that they needed to be more upfront when the armed services do appear to have made mistakes. And so this might be a small step in that direction. It will be interesting to see how this story unfolds. But the military also needs to concern, and this is contained in the military's own rules of engagement: respect for human rights, respect for civilian and constituted authority, and also respect for the lives and the properties right of the Nigerians that they are called to serve. And if these two soldiers were in any way deemed to have been culpable of breaking the military's own rules of engagement as well as our laws, then yes, justice is their candidates for for constituted justice.
Right.
All right, a lot of your messages coming in. Let's start off with B from Lucky, who says, the only thing that Obi has over the other candidates is a perception of being uncorrupted. However, I worry about his ability to govern as much as the others. What does it mean to move from a consuming nation to a producing one? That is too generic. Any candidate that does not speak about canceling subsidies or canceling the window of arbitrage in Forex is not serious. This message in from Sam.
Sam is saying Nigeria has to battle with the issue of climate change and bad government policies. That is what is eating hard on everybody. Can these governments please change its policies? I pray the Messiah comes as soon as possible to help with our economy.
Ken says some Nigerians actually expected Tinubu to come and address Africa's largest bar association yesterday. Wow, not nice, he says.
And this one, I think your audience, and okay, thank you so much. Let's keep it going.
Nero Cello from Ogudu says the APC's fares are growing by the day. Peter Obi gives the excitement of GJ in 2011 and Buhari in 2015. Obedience are growing by the day. All right, then. Thank you for that. And we will take this message in.
So is blackmailing by government the best solution to ASU's strike, or threatening to stop lecturers' salaries a solution? It will escalate the strike rather than stop it. And who suffers? Students and parents. May God help us. Idima Puza from Surulere.
Okay, and Tanya from Agodo says Peter Obi's supporters are dangerous. FFK needs to clarify in no uncertain terms who is in danger. I think that is where the real story is. He's speaking in parables and prose. It is laughable. Okay.
Well, we stop here for now because of time. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. To all of your messages, we appreciate them. Apologies, we cannot take all the messages, but we must thank you, Uwade Hime, for being a part of the show today.
Thank you for having me as usual.
And Ikeme Young, thank you so much for joining in as well.
An absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, and do make sure you follow both of them for more conversation, more insight, more analysis on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever you can find them, even on Medium. Ikemesit is at Judge Ike, spelled IYKE, and Wade is at Wade Ahimye _. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're done.
All right, guys. Thanks.
I actually got all the Twitter handles right, and I'm very, very happy. You are saying it, Ikemesit?
Shokwe, we've not had our conversation. Wadi, we've not had our conversation. He's walking out like
I had